Robert. I think the plan was I go first, so I don't want
Yeah,
to
go ahead, Erica. It's all you.
Mike freak out about it. So hi everyone, good morning. My name is Erica Tiso. I'm the owner of Thrive Marketing Long Island. And first off, I just, thank you for this opportunity to the chamber. The chamber's been amazing and with helping with my business and they're so wonderful. So thank you guys for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. So just a brief, career history of how this got to be with Thrive. After college, I worked in Manhattan at various media agencies, and that's really where my career started. Working with Fortune 500 companies at big media conglomerates. I did everything from media buying to media planning. And this is where I really learned about the client relationship. And I learned the ropes, as a young post-grad, worked my way up throughout my 20s at different positions. And I really, that was my career start. I eventually made the switch to sales, working at the Weather Channel, which was very exciting. For a moment, thought I wanted to be a meteorologist, then that didn't happen. Next life. So, working in sales really gave me the tools to understand challenges that people are facing and problems and finding a solution for them, right? So that was really a foundation for later on, which I didn't know, I would start my own company. And a big part of that is helping people. Sales is sales. You're obviously selling something and products, but you learn from being in sales, you learn, how to help people and solve their problems. That's what, the whole idea of it is, right? You're selling your service, your product to make the lives of your customers or clients better and enhance, their business. So working in sales was I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity. I worked my way up to, account manager. And then I spent 6 years doing outdoor advertising on Long Island and in the tri-state area. So that's the first time I worked with small to mid-sized local businesses. It was a big change from working with P&G, Ace Hardware, Sears, the Home Depot. Now I was working with local business owners that had businesses that were their livelihoods and their dreams and their, all of their life savings were in these businesses. So working in outdoor advertising, helping them get their picture on a bus shelter at a busy intersection, that's a big deal for business owners. And I started to have these great relationships with all of these local business owners. And I started to love it so much dealing with them. And it was more personable. It was a local level. I fell in love with just local businesses and the owners. It was more special. And that's really where I started to feel like this is something I want to stick with. I don't know in what capacity. I didn't want to do outdoor advertising forever, but that was really the how my passion kind of took off, working with local businesses and directly with business owners. So just from a personal standpoint, I've been living in Huntington for 7 years. I grew up on Long Island on the South Shore. I have 2 children, 5 and 9. And I just have become completely in love with Huntington and our community, this town, all of the businesses, everything that's going on here. So I think in the last 6 or 7 years, coupled with working with business owners in outdoor advertising campaigns and falling in love with my community and my town and building really great relationships, that inspiration kind of to, mix together. So that's why I wanted to go into kind of how Thrive was born. Last year, before COVID, I had a job. And then COVID hit, and like millions of other people, I did not have a job. So it interesting. It was kind of like, oh, okay, I could hang out for a little, you know, this might not be the worst thing. I have children. And then I realized, well, no, I've been working my whole life and I need, you know, I want something more. And I always wanted to work. And I always had this idea that I wanted my own thing, my own business. I had millions of bosses, not millions, but probably 25 to 30 bosses throughout my career. And one day I wanted to be the boss and I felt like I could do it. And I had that entrepreneurial spirit. So over the summer, I pondered what I was going to do. And one day in October, I thought of a name. I went on a logo site to get a free logo. I created a logo. Probably wish I knew Diana Maria at Digo at that point, so they could do it better, which they will, I'm sure, soon. And I really self-taught myself a lot of things. I created a website from Squarespace, had no idea what I was doing, but I did it. I ordered business cards. I took a social media marketing course online to get a certificate. I did a lot of research. I watched tons of videos. Now, marketing and advertising and sales was in my, you know, my blood with my career. And social media was a passion of mine for years. I'm very active on social media, and I'm very much a communicator. So social media to me is a form of communication for businesses and people. That's really what it is. It's communication. It's just on social media platforms, right? So that's how I started. It was a really quick thing. It's kind of a blur. And I had a strategy in place, but because it was a pandemic, I had to really change a lot of things. And this is what I, you know, wanted to this is what I'm excited to kind of share with everyone, because I knew that businesses were hurting. I knew this was not a great time to start a business that was B2B, that was, you know, a service for businesses, but they had to pay for it. And people were, you know, they were hurting, they were closing. But I did it anyway. And the reason I think it has become successful is because of the ways that I figured out how to change my strategy, kind of adapt my approach, you know, change my approach and alter a lot of things that I needed to do because of the situation. When I sat down to think about how to prepare for the webinar today, that's when I really realized all the things that I had to change. I hadn't thought about it until I had to for this, really. And I said, wow, I really did a lot of things differently. If it wasn't a pandemic and the situation was, you know, pre-COVID and normal, I would have gone about this a lot differently. I was planning to walk into businesses, go up and down Main Street and introduce myself and give out my business card and ask them if they have anyone doing their social media. I mean, I was going to do like a hard door-to-door sales pitch. I couldn't do any of that. So, you know, what was I supposed to do? So there was a lot of things that had to change. So, and I really wanted to break it down and make it simple for everyone to understand. So even though a lot of businesses, a lot of your businesses might be different industry, different category, these are all things that I did that could be applied to any type of business or situation. So they are, you know, they're relatable to any type of situation. So I'm just gonna share my screen here, and I will, I just have a few talking points that I'll explain here. Sorry, hold on. If I can just get this open. Here we go. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yep, we're good. Okay. So I tried to break it down because I thought about this, and there were kind of 3 steps that I went through and that I think people need to go through to learn how to adapt and pivot when necessary. I don't know if anything like this will ever happen again, right? We don't know. There could be something different. There's always things that come up where people have to adapt. And I think business owners, it's really important to have that ability to change direction or figure things out quickly. So the first thing, so these are the 3 steps really: reality, revise, and relevancy. They happen to all start with an R. I really did not try and just pick out words that were R's, but it worked out nicely. So reality, that meant for me was, okay, what's the situation? Let's think about reality right now. There's, what are my prospective clients going through? Because if you don't think about what they're going through and put yourself in their shoes, you can't really come up with a strategy that's going to, be successful or effective. Because you really, the first thing in any, in my mind, the first thing to do is understand what's happening, right? So for me, my prospective clients were business owners. So what was going on? Okay, their businesses are closed. Restaurants were doing only takeout, limited services, products aren't available, right? So what else is being affected from this? There's so many things along the way that are affected by this. So understanding the reality of the situation was like a big part of me taking that step to figure out how I had to adapt and change my strategy. And identifying their pain points. So that's part of it. So here's my customer situation. What are their challenges, right? Business is slow, revenue's down, they're nervous, they're unsure, no one knows what's going to happen. People are scared and they need help, right? So their needs, in my mind, I know that business owners needed help adapting. So I was adapting my strategy to grow, to run a business and start a business. But I also was thinking, well, the other business owners, they need help adapting and figuring out how to deal with this. And that's where my services and my expertise would come in. So, communicating with customers on social media throughout the pandemic, that was huge. I mean, there was no other way to communicate with your customers if your business was closed. So the explosion of activity that I witnessed everywhere, but locally, was incredible over the pandemic. The uptick in the activity, and people just had to find out what they needed to find out through social media with businesses and restaurant specials and takeout, everything, right? Donations. So what are their needs? For me, I was thinking, well, business owners right now probably need ideas. They probably need help. They probably need some creativity, or, they're short-staffed. They're doing it all themselves because they probably had to either let people go or cut their hours, and they can't do it all themselves. So if it wasn't a pandemic, I'm not sure I would have focused on that as much. But when I was able to sit down and say, what's their situation? What are their pain points? And from that, what do they need now? They need help. And I wanted to help them. So this is the first step, I think, in anyone trying to adapt and change. And no matter what the reason is to have to adapt to, something happening, these are all ways that you can say, okay, what's the reality of the situation? What are my clients dealing with? What are their challenges and pain points right now? And what do they need? Because of that, what do they need, right? And then the next step would be, well, how can I help them and solve their problems? So the second part of my strategy to adapt and pivot is revise, right? So we talked about the reality of the situation, and now we have to revise the approach, because like I said, was going to go meet people in person, introduce myself, shake hands. This is what I did in sales my whole career. This is what I learned. And all of a sudden it was time to start a business that I wanted to do. And I couldn't use any of those, those tactics, those sales tactics and relationship building. It wasn't available because of the pandemic. So definitely had to revise my strategy. So for me, it was, how can I fit the needs right now for my clients? How do I help their needs? But I can't see them in person, so I need to communicate online or phone or Zoom. I need to alter my services and offerings, because you can't go out there knowing your clients, because I'm a B2B company. Can't go out there knowing my clients are hurting and obnoxiously have these insane price points that I probably would have felt more comfortable going out with if it wasn't a pandemic. But I was willing, I said, I'm starting a business. Who am I to just come in right now during a pandemic? And, I wanted to build my client base. So I had to do something to change up my services and offerings. So one thing I did was, and I don't know if this was something I wanted to try it. I didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. One of the things I offered was, let me teach you how to do social media instead of hiring me to do it. And I know a lot of people think this is absolutely insane, but I said, well, I don't mind sitting down with someone for a few hours, charging them hourly for my, help, and teaching them what to do and how to do it, and help them learn. So I thought about ways to offer things that they needed at that time. And my goals were obviously revised, because I knew it might be a slow start. I really didn't know what to expect if I'd have a client anytime soon. Turns out I had a lot of clients very quickly, which was a blessing. I wasn't ready for it at all, but I made it through that beginning period. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I revised all of my approach. Communication, that had to be revised, and that, I think that is the biggest thing. I'm a big communicator, and I think it's all in the messaging. I think branding and messaging is just such a crucial part of businesses and local businesses, because people need communication. If they don't know what you're doing, what you're providing, what you can do for them, it's you might as well just sit in your office and do nothing. I mean, I just think so. Social media for me, it was like the way that I grew my business. I started my Instagram page, and I just went full force. I didn't say, oh, I'm not going to post anything. No one's going to hire me. They don't have any money. They're hurting. Why am I going to post something? I just went full force. But the messaging had to change. The messaging was, instead of, hey, I'm offering this service and sell in their face, it was empathetic. The messaging was helpful. I wanted to be, and I still, this is part of my whole passion, but to be resourceful for business owners to get helpful tips from, and say, well, she knows what she's talking about. Look, this is great stuff. This actually, this is helpful. I like this. So that my Instagram page grew very quickly because I was creating a web of, tagging and mentioning and growing in the area, which is a social media strategy, of course. And I wanted everyone to follow me because I wanted to help them. So my communication went what would have been, if it wasn't a pandemic, Thrive can do this for you and Thrive can do that for you. And, more salesy in a way, which it really shouldn't be that much in general, social media. But I really didn't do any of that in the beginning. It was more like, did you know tips, helpful, strategies for social and marketing and emails. So communication definitely had to be revised. And the last thing is process. I think any business has to change their process, of course, to adapt and pivot during any time, any type of situation similar to what we've gone through. And that included, obviously not being able to go meet with people door to door. There was no in-person networking events. I just attended my first in-person event with the chamber and it was amazing. So, none of that was available. So the process was, right, social media, emails, phone calls, setting up Zoom meetings. And then as I started to get my first few clients, the process of nurturing my clients changed a little bit more. I understood that they were a little nervous. Some of the terms and conditions on my contracts, I was a little more lenient with because I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm too nice sometimes, but I didn't want to say, oh yeah, I know it's a pandemic and you're hurting and you need help. So you're gonna hire me, but I'm going to lock you in for a year. I just didn't think that was appropriate. So I revised the process a little bit. I said, I think I need to change some of this. And any business everyone has different process that they go through in their business, but I think, taking a look at that and seeing where you can make some small changes when necessary to make your customers and clients more at ease and more sure of it, sure of the relationship they're going to have with you. I think they appreciate that a lot. And I got the feedback from my clients. They were very appreciative of the fact that I was, very flexible. Like I said, I just started my business. So, I was in no position to just go out there and be really, strict with my process. So it was a little more lenient than it probably would have been if it wasn't a pandemic. So the last one is relevancy. So, here's the reality of the situation. We went through how to revise things accordingly, how I adapted and made those revisions. And then staying relevant through it all, because sitting back and doing nothing at the time, even though, everyone said, oh, my business isn't even open. I don't need to do anything. If I can't sell my products and my store is closed, why would I need to post on social media? Why would I need to send out an email to my clients? What do I need to do anything for? I can't provide them with anything. I'm closed. That's the worst thing someone can do, to be honest, because you want to stay top of mind throughout it. You want to be with your customers, right? You want to go through it together with them, let them know you're still there. We're here if you need us. That's messaging. That's the communication I had spoken about earlier. The touch points, without overwhelming, obviously annoying people, but if they don't hear from you for 6 months to a year because your business is slow or you had to close down, it's not going to necessarily be a good thing when things start up again. So in my mind with my company, I said, well, yeah, things are not in a good place right now, but I want them to know I'm here. I want them to know that that I'm here when they're ready or if they need me. And I'm a resource. So staying top of mind, I still did all my blogs every month, put them out there. I could have easily said, well, I mean, no one's there. Everyone's hurting right now. I'm not going to do this. I don't need to write a blog. Why do I need to write a blog? but my blogs are helpful and informative. And that was my whole, idea behind Thrive, was to be a helpful, informative place for people to come to. So staying top of mind and keeping the trust going. And that's kind of tied into that. I mean, people need such trust more than ever. And there's a ton of recent research and studies that have shown, I mean, it's all over. You can find the articles anywhere. I think I posted a few about how more than ever clients, customers want to feel that the business they're buying from has the same values that they have, right? So they're trustworthy, reliable, empathy. The trust is built by responding quickly on social media. Even if your store was closed and someone messaged you or commented on social, write them back right away. Let them know you're there, right? You're still there. It doesn't matter. You're still going to be there for them. That's the trust. And the last part was being proactive. I think, staying relevant, being proactive. You can't just, like I said, you can't just sit back because the other people, your competitors are, if they're still going 120% and you're sitting back, chances are when it's time for someone to think about a need that they have, they may be calling the person that they think of right away on the top of their mind. And that's going to be someone who's kept the communication going, who's kept the trust going, and who's been there. So I think, me being able to adapt and just make sure I was staying as relevant as possible. Social media, blog writing, keeping up with learning. I have to constantly keep up with marketing trends. I'm always trying to find out, there's new trends on social media, there's new marketing trends, there's new forms of marketing and advertising to look at. So, when it was downtime, I kept learning, networking, brainstorming ideas, writing stuff down for when it was time to have an idea, creating, brainstorming for the future. So being proactive was a big part of staying relevant to yourself too, staying relevant to your own business, not just your customers, right? That was kind of like an internal way to be relevant. You don't want to lose your talent over the course of business being slow. So I wanted to be ready when things picked up. Things picked up pretty quickly. So which was great. And the way that happened, my first two clients were actually from, and I still have those clients now. They are from a post that I posted on I think the Huntington Facebook group page. They do a small business Saturday, and small businesses post and tell about what they do. I just commented and wrote about what I can do for business owners and help with. And within a week, I had 2 calls, the people that saw my post, and they became clients right away. Now it's about 8 months later. I have 6 or 7 clients, I think 7. And it's growing, it's wonderful. But there were a lot of resources that helped me, and I wanted to bring this up because another R word, resource, I actually didn't realize that, that's funny. A lot of things that during the time of starting my business and during the pandemic, a lot of resources that I used to help me, keep going and growing and networking and meeting people. And that was, one was the Chamber of Commerce. Amazing. I mean, my last 3 or 4 clients was through the Chamber of Commerce networking and meeting people. And it's incredible. So your local Chamber of Commerce, I mean, Huntington they're amazing. they're so helpful for our businesses. And so
we appreciate that. And I know, you definitely, as soon as you joined, made it known that you were a resource for our members. And we've been really happy to see you grow in just the short amount of time that you've been a member, and great to connect with those people. So we really appreciate that, Erica. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and then the other resources, look, I have mentor. A lot of business owners do have mentors. I mean, mine was a former boss of mine that has his own agency. So we spoke a lot and he helped guide me a little bit. Peers, just talking to other people that work in marketing that I've met along the way. Business coach. So Joe Matalone at Power Strategies. I did his business boot camp and it was incredible because it really got my business in check and helped me organize everything along the way and think about how to make sure I write everything down, number one. But all of these revisions and strategies that I did when I started the business in October, I met with him a little later, and it was time for me to kind of go through that again and tweak and refine it, because now things were changing and picking up again, and I could go in person, and I could, that was another pivot. So I started out in a pandemic, startup mode. And now I'm kind of pivoting again because I can go meet with people in person. I can be a little more confident in my, services and offerings. So that was another way. And then, marketing consultant, obviously that's what I am. So I didn't have to hire a marketing consultant, but, a lot of companies that don't have a full-time employee dedicated to marketing or social media, sometimes, especially with what happened, last year, hiring someone as an outsource, to outsource that is actually, the feedback I've received has been very, very beneficial and a great relationship for a lot of businesses. Those were a lot of the resources that helped me along the way to pivot. And
thank you.
It's been a great
so much for sharing that. We really appreciate that insight. And I think, it's been great to see that in all your social media posts and how you have created that resource. I think, the tips you gave us today are really going to be beneficial to a lot of our members. So we really appreciate you sharing that with us. Thanks so much, Erica. And I think we are going to introduce our next presenter and move on to the next topic, unless there's anything else you needed to say, Erica, to wrap it up. You're good? All right. We are going to introduce next Mike Palma of Traverse Capital Management to share a little bit about how he opened up his business in the middle of a pandemic as well. So Mike, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks, Kelly, and the rest of the chamber. And, thanks everybody for taking some time out of your day today. And I do have some slides that I want to just bring up. If you guys just bear with me for a second, I'll get that going. You guys all see that okay? Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. So I wanted to, first start out just by talking a little bit about my background. I know some of the people here know me, some people not as much, but I began in this career in wealth management in 2008. And I started out in New York City. I worked at 2 large companies in Manhattan for a total of about 11 years. And then I made a decision that I was going to form my independent firm, Traverse. And I went and made that move actually in September 2019. There was 3 reasons why I wanted to become independent and form my own company. The first was just to get some additional flexibility in how I can take care of my clients. I wanted to be able to do what was in their best interest at all times. And I wanted the ability to be able to be a little bit more proactive in terms of what I was able to offer. I also, wanted to be able to grow the way that I wanted to on my terms. I was part of a team with some of the companies I was working with previously. And, obviously minds don't always line up in terms of how people want to grow and expand. and market. And I really felt that I had come to a point where I had kind of diverged from the people I was working with at the time. And another very important thing to me was I really wanted to be close to the family. My family here out on Long Island, it gets to be a lot to go into the city every day to commute. So it was important to me to be able to have a location and choose my own location where I was going to work out of. And for me, that was, I was able to, basically be within about 5 miles of my home. So those were the main motivations for starting the company. And a little bit about my practice, just a quick introduction so that way people can kind of know what I do. I do focus in all areas of financial planning, but I do specialize mostly in working with pre-retirees and recent retirees. So this would be people that have retirement assets saved up. What they need is a plan. So they need to figure out what their goals are, how to quantify them, and then make sure that their existing investments are aligned to that vision, which is something that it sounds harder than it is. And I think when people approach retirement, they do have challenges in completing these tasks. So that's an area really for my whole career that I've gravitated towards and been able to help people in. And I do have a process that I go through with each client that I'm proud of, that I've developed over the course of several years, that really, is conducive to helping people and families, being able to get that done and to put them in a place where they feel comfortable and feel better. So to move on to, the challenges that I faced specifically during COVID, I was really just finishing the process of moving over my existing clients. I had formed the company about 5 months before COVID really hit. And I was transitioning into the growth mode. I had a lot of ideas for how I wanted to grow. And my plan, a big part of my plan, was to focus heavily on in-person networking within the local community, things like this. And another challenge that I had kind of related to growing is that I needed to be able to meet new people. So if I got a new prospective client, whether it be through networking or through a referral, I needed to be able to earn their trust. And the way that you do that is with personal contact. I couldn't meet anybody. So that was a huge challenge for being able to grow. And then for my existing clients, I had to still take care of them. I couldn't, let go of the people that were loyal and they came over with me, which the vast majority of my clients did. I had to take care of them. And, if you guys remember, particularly back during the onset of COVID, the markets were incredibly volatile, and, existing clients had needs that I needed to be able to fulfill. So those were all things that, obviously very suddenly became big problems, in my very, very new business at the time. So I had to adjust, and, there's a few things that I did, that I think, really helped, especially looking back on it now, that I wanted to highlight. So number one is that I did continue getting dressed for business. So I put on a suit, maybe not a tie, but I dressed for business, and I actually I came to my physical office daily. I know that, there was a big, a big movement, which is, still going on now for working from home. I was fortunate in that I did have the ability to work in an empty office suite. So, I would go on Zoom meetings with people, and, they would say, "Oh, you're in the office, everybody's working from home." And I would joke and say, "Yeah, I'm more socially distant here than anywhere else because I'm in a gigantic building and there's like 3 cars in the parking lot." And it's the truth. So I did have the ability to come in, and that was important to me because I needed it to be able to maintain my focus, amid all the distractions of everything that was going on in the world. And I have 3 little kids, as some people here know. It was important to be able to focus on what I needed to do to be launching a business. So that was something that I did. I did not really buy into the working from home thing, because fortunately I did have the ability to come into an office and be, physically by myself, for a good portion of the day. I saw the extra time that I had as an opportunity to work on my brand. So I knew that this was going to be something that I had to do, and that it was really critical but it was going to be a challenging pre-pandemic to find time to do it while I was attending events and taking care of my clients. So because I had extra time now on my hands, I said, I'm going to make the brand what I want it to be. I took the time to really get that done. So that way I had the right messaging for what would eventually come about, which was the return to normal. I always looked at this as, this is temporary. We're doing what we need to do right now, but eventually I am going to be able to do the things I wanted to do originally. So when that time comes, I want to make sure that my brand is what I want it to be. So I constantly looked at it as an opportunity to be able to do that and to be able to focus on the brand. Another thing that I did was I learned how to market, really learned how to market online. So marketing online was something that, I had kind of as a secondary idea originally, for how I was going to do things, but it became really one of the only ways to be able to reach out and to connect with people like Erica was talking about before. So I started interviewing, and over the course of the past 15 months, I have hired and replaced multiple vendors that have helped me with everything, from my website to email marketing, LinkedIn, learning how to use those tools effectively, really out of necessity. I was forced to really learn the right way to use platforms like LinkedIn and to do other things, because I became a lot more dependent, obviously, on online marketing than I thought I was going to be. So I had to get good at that, and then get comfortable with Zoom. So for some people, this was a kind of a non-issue, but you have to understand, for me, I had never run a Zoom meeting for the purposes of meeting with a client until last March, because I had always been taught in my business, it was a face-to-face business. It's the only way to do it. You have to develop that connection. So you have to see people in person. It's the only way. And then all of a sudden, almost overnight, that went away. Couldn't do it anymore. But I still had to be able to give people, personal interaction, whether it's existing clients or new prospective clients. Because in my business in particular, it's all about relationships, and you need to be able to at least see the person, right? So Zoom is something that allowed me to be able to do that, to at least have, a visual interaction with the people that I was meeting with over the past year. And Zoom for me is something that is going to remain as a time saver, not all the time, but in certain situations. So I'm very thankful that I have been able to start seeing clients again, both in my office and outside of the office. But I am going to maintain Zoom for certain meetings in certain situations, because it's a useful tool that probably I would not have embraced unless I was forced to do it. So, those are really the main points into what I actually, as far as what I actually did really on the fly to adjust, and then, what we learned from it. So thankfully, I think we can all agree that we are progressing toward normal, in terms of being able to grow and develop our business. I have been able to attend those chamber events that were talked about before. They've been great. I'm looking forward to more of that going on. And now, I do have the ability to go out and kind of go more towards what my original plan was. So I'm very happy and thankful for that. And I'm really looking forward to the future. But I think that the lessons that were learned are still relevant. So even though we might not have to pivot as much because of COVID going forward, I think that the lessons remain. So the first is, attitude. Nothing can be more important. I think during the course of the last 15 months, every one of us at some point experienced, moments of doubt, especially in running a business. But, it's very easy, as as all business owners know, to, when you start to have those thoughts, to kind of, sit back and stop. Erica was talking a little bit before about, how can I reach out to these people? They're all struggling. But you can't do that. It's always important. It's one of those things that we say, if we got through this, we could get through anything. So if you have that attitude in your business and you keep that going past all of this, then I think that is, an important thing that we can bring forward. And then change, right? So there are new opportunities that arise from a challenge. I would not have gotten the experience that I now have with things like online marketing, if this did not happen. And there are a lot of opportunities there. I think that, you know, for many businesses who have been successful throughout the pandemic, I think that they looked at where we can find the opportunities. So just because we may be getting back to some level of normalcy in our businesses now, it doesn't mean that you stop looking for those opportunities. So that's something that I think is important, and trying, you know, new ways of doing things. We all did it out of necessity. Things that we never thought we would do before. You know, for me, it was, getting new clients over Zoom. There were other things too that I'm doing now that I always kind of said, I don't need that. That's not for me. I do it this way and it's fine. But, I was forced to give that up and start to think differently. And I think that a lot of the things that I have started to do now and will continue to do are very beneficial things that I'm happy I did, because they're really going to improve my business in the long term, post-pandemic. So I think those are really important things to take home from what I learned, and be able to help businesses moving forward, as we get back to our lives and our businesses. So I wanted to thank everyone for listening in. Wish everyone prosperity in your business, in your personal life as we move on. I think that we're all, in a place where we're looking forward to it and we're ready. And, I was happy to share the experience that I had, and I hope that everyone found it helpful. And, please feel free to reach out. I put my contact information up on the screen. I can share this presentation with anyone else as well after the meeting. But anyone who would like to speak, I would love to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out. And I'm going to turn it back over to the hosts now, just so that way they can, finish up with the rest of the program today. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Fantastic. So Mike, Erica, thank you. Thank you so much for all that information. I hope that folks were taking notes, because I'm sure that you found some information very helpful. I myself did. So I feel encouraged to keep an open mind, stay innovative. And, for anyone who picked up on things and said, oh man, I wish I did that. It's never too late. You're still in business. You can still do it. There's nothing wrong with playing catch up. Sometimes we all have to do that. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I don't know if there are any questions. I know we're coming up on time, but if our speakers can hang out for a couple of questions, or we got 2 minutes if anyone has a quick one they want to get in.
I can hang out if anybody has anything.
So, I don't know, it looks like you guys might have done too good of a job.
You did such a good
There are
job.
no questions.
I know, I loved the 4 R's for sure. I thought that was great. You're gonna add the 4th, Erica, but the 4 R's were wonderful. It's a great way to look at everything and kind of outline it. And Mike, the attitude thing, that's like the perfect way you have to look at it. Instead of woe is me, it's okay, what can I do? I like it. I was
Thank you.
inspired.
Great job. Thank you, guys.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, so unless there are other questions, I would say we can probably end on time, give everybody the rest of their day back. Thanks so much. And thanks again to our presenters. This would not have been so great without you, obviously.